What is up, everybody? Welcome back to another edition of the Fatboyz Dynasty Podcast, presented by the Fantasy Holics, coming at you live on the Fantasy Holics Podcast Network YouTube channel. I am Bo. That is Brant. Brant, we got through week 2. A little bit better for most of our fantasy assets. Still got some that haven't quite figured it out this year. And then we had a slate full of injuries to the quarterback room, which is going to be the primary focus of our show today. But what's your biggest takeaway from week 2, Brant?
The studs showed out. They showed out. And then, you reverted back to the prime Russell Wilson. I got to give a shout out. That was an amazing game between Dallas and New York. Everyone had that written off as, what should have been Dallas blowing them out. And then Russell Wilson in Russell Wilson fashion, balls out, great deep balls, and then throws an interception to end the game, kind of like a Super Bowl. But I'm going to take my shot. I got to take my own shot at myself. It's okay. But what a phenomenal week. Then we had, like you said, a whole slew of injuries. We talk about bye apocalypse. Well, now this week we're going into injury apocalypse just for the quarterbacks. And I think the studs, they showed out. I know A.J. Brown still didn't look up to par. And then, Jalen Hurts, of all people, 12 fantasy points, as we talk about, as he's a great rushing quarterback and everything, and that upside, and that was rough for him. Be patient was the biggest thing, but
yeah. And I got to say this year, Brant, I will say this. We have to be a little more patient on rookies than we've been in years past. I still believe the pedigree is there for these guys. And we do have a comment that I want to make sure we get to here from Kevin. So I'm going to get to this in just a second. That being said, the patience on the rookies, whether it be the wide receivers, whether it be the running backs, Quinshon Judkins looked way better than I anticipated in his debut for the Cleveland Browns. Way better. I'm excited about Judkins. I think this week he's hard to start, even though he's listed as the starting running back on their depth chart, just because of how, darn good that Green Bay defense has looked through 2 weeks. But man, Judkins looked good. I'm going to say this: Genty hasn't looked the part yet, but the volume's there, so I think the rest will fall into line. For the wide receivers, Tet has had 2 decent weeks. Not the Malik Neighbors week or the Olave or London weeks from the early in those guys' career. We got to be patient on some of these guys, right? So Kevin does ask, how concerned are we about A.J. Brown and then Omar and Hampton, which I think are 2 separate situations. So we'll start with the A.J. Brown one. How concerned are you on him or A.J. Brown and the Eagles pass catchers at this point, Brant?
I am concerned, it doesn't look good. It doesn't look like Jalen Hurts is getting it out to him. He's not. It just doesn't look good. I'm not even sure how the second week looked for A.J. Brown, because I was mind boggled by how bad that Jalen Hurts was. Just 12 fantasy points with his rushing upside. And it's just, I'm highly concerned about that offense. It doesn't look very good. It doesn't look like it's getting any better either. So I'm definitely concerned about A.J. Brown, and he's a guy that I may be trying to move this year in some dynasty leagues, because they're not going to get off of or come off of Jalen Hurts that easy. So I may be trying to move this guy this year. I'm extremely concerned with it. He looked good Hurts looked good when Goddard was out there, but that was 6 catches for 16 yards or something with Goddard over the middle. And then, there was nothing there for A.J. Brown. I don't know. I'm extremely concerned with this whole offense, except for Barkley.
Yeah, so I will say I'm half concerned on A.J. Brown, right? Week 1, he had 1 target, 1 reception, 8 yards. If we saw that trend continue into the second week, I'd be very upset. However, A.J. Brown had 8 targets, 5 receptions for 27 yards. Still not good, but the volume's there, right? It's not a lack of passing volume for him at this point. So I'm a little less worried about it than I would have been had his targets have stayed low. Problem is, you're right. The Eagles are finding gritty ways to win games right now. That's all through the run. It's, third down and short, tush pushes. It's second and short, Saquon Barkley's. It's game management this year. However, my stance is this. I think I would like to get out of either A.J. Brown or Devonta Smith if you have one of the 2 of them. I can't justify doing it until one of them, they have a decent week and try to sell it at least pre-season value, because right now you're selling so cheap that if there's any sort of bounce back, it's you're getting bent over on the wood pile, so to speak, to do it. So for me right now, I'm waiting for a decent little week, and then I'm going to try to ship as well.
I will say this with Jalen Hurts. It came out yesterday that the OC came out and said design runs are coming for Jalen Hurts. So that could even limit the passing more. He has 74 of his 77 yards this year are off scrambles. Last year, he had 300 yards of his 630 came off designed runs. So they're not even designing him to run. So this could even limit the passing even more there. So hopefully you do get that 1 week that you can sell them at preseason value.
All right, so we're going to talk about Hampton too, but Kevin does follow it up by saying he has Hampton, JCM, Bill, and Judkins. Hampton looks like the worst of the three. Chargers refuse to run the ball. What's your thoughts on Hampton, Brant, for the next coming weeks?
Honestly, I mean, you and me both talked about how we thought Najee would have a role even prior or before the injury. We still kind of talked about him having a role. You knew that was going to come. His role was going to get bigger, but it really didn't. It was 8 carries apiece for them this week. The offense, Herbert looks good. That offense is rolling. They're airing the ball out, and I think eventually they will go back to the run. That's the hardball way, is to run the ball. So I do think eventually it will go back to the run. I'm not concerned about that running back core. That's a pretty good line that they're running behind. But I'm definitely probably easing my expectations until I see them start to run the ball more. Right now, Herbert's balling out, airing the ball out so nicely. They played the Chiefs week 1, which is a decent secondary, but it normally takes them midseason before we start seeing them really turn it up for the Chiefs. And then they played the Raiders, who the secondary isn't the greatest. So they did play 2 games that they needed to air the ball out, I do think, or could air the ball out. So I do think the run game is going to come shortly.
Well, more importantly, too, Brant, those were 2 division games. So the Chargers were doing what they needed to do to win those games. Yep. They mean a lot, especially this time of the season. I agree. I think Harbaugh is a run first kind of a coach. I think it will even out at some point. The one thing that I do want to make a note of is week 1, Hampton saw over 80% of the snaps and 18 for Najee. Week 2, that evened out a little bit more, 60% for Hampton, 34% for Najee. So I want to see what it looks like after next week. But as long as Hampton's getting the lion's share, so over 50%, I'm still good with him being in my lineup, because it takes falling in the end zone for a running back to have a decent week for you. So
especially now with all the committees.
Correct. So yeah, I mean, I think you just be patient on that one. Tony asks, are we surprised with the Patriots use of Stevenson as much as they have more touches than Henderson? And do you think that will continue?
Yeah, you and me talked about this prior to the season, and you were still big on Stevenson. When asked to do what he needs to do, he's always been there and done it. He's been the workhorse there. They're not just going to take that away from him, even with how good Henderson looked in the preseason. And so, no, I'm not surprised at all by this. I am surprised that he kind of is. I believe he outscored Henderson this week. And so I am surprised that he did outscore him or even outsnapped him. I did get to see the highlights of that game. I haven't sat down to get to rewatch that game yet, but it definitely does not surprise me that Stevenson is still so highly involved.
Yeah, Stevenson was RB6 this week, Brant. I mean, he was on the field for 6, but back-to-back weeks, 65% of the snaps, which is about what we expected. He had 54 yards rushing. Really, his fantasy day was made from his receiving work, 5 for 5 for 88 yards. Here's the thing. TreVeyon Henderson is really struggling in pass pro right now. You're not going to be on the field for a head coach like Mike Vrabel in the NFL if you can't protect the quarterback when you're not, leaving out of the pocket for routes. And Stevenson pass pros. He blocks well out of the backfield. And, yeah, I'm not exactly ready to take a victory lap just yet on the Stevenson versus Henderson thing. But when we did do our hot take episode, I did say, hey, I think Ramondre Stevenson's a top 24 back this year and is the leader of that backfield over the course of the season. And I'll reiterate why I thought that was going to be the way it was, Brand, is because Henderson's size bothers me a little bit. It works out well for Achane in Miami with the way Mike McDaniel wants to run things. But I think Vrabel's more of a defense. He was a tight end and linebacker in football. He's a gritty, pound the rock kind of guy. He's going to win games by having gritty performances out of his running backs. His offensive line are going to be the stars of his show. And I think that's the kind of back Ramondre Stevenson is. So honestly, until Ramondre Stevenson has a reason to be benched, I don't expect that to happen. I still think TreVeyon Henderson has fantasy value because, again, he, like I said prior to the season starting, he doesn't need 20 touches for him to be, explosive. He needs 10 to 12. And I think he probably gets that. But again, this is going to be Stevenson's backfield for the remainder of the season unless injury or he starts having a fumbling issue. So I'm not concerned about it right now because this is exactly what I thought would happen there.
Yep, absolutely.
All right, Brent, let's jump in and start talking about these quarterback, purgatory, if you will, the panic meters, sounding on these teams. Let's start, if you're okay with it. You want to start with the Minnesota Vikings. Because J.J. McCarthy got banged up by a certain NFL defense that is just electric. Lit the world on fire on Sunday night last week. The damn dirty birds of Atlanta. I haven't seen a defense like that since I was a wee lad, Brant. 2004 was the last time the Falcons had a defensive performance that good. And I know it was boring watch for everybody that wasn't a Falcons fan, but I absolutely love that Sunday night football game. Had to take a quick lap there. But what are your thoughts on J.J. McCarthy being out for potentially 2 to 4 weeks and Carson Wentz being under center?
Honestly, I think this might be an upgrade for the receivers there. You're set up for a great success. We saw Sam Darnold do it last year. I'm not 100% sure what their schedule is, but he's set up. He's got, if not the best receiver in the game, but top 2 receiver in the game. And Jefferson, he's got a decent core with Naylor and Thielen. The running back is banged up with Aaron Jones moving to the IR and Jordan Mason going to take over that backfield. But I do think he's set up for success. We've seen Carson Wentz finish as a top 12 quarterback twice in his career when being a starter. Now, I know he's not going to be the starter the whole year, but if he comes out and balls out the next couple games and wins those games, you could see Wentz really competing for that our QB1 job. I don't think this is a downgrade. I believe this is going to be an upgrade for that offense because they'll be able to air the ball. I wasn't a fan of McCarthy coming out. I know that everyone said, he'll be fine. I wasn't a fan of him starting. I wasn't a big fan of him in college. He didn't pass. He didn't show me a whole lot. So I think this is great for Carson Wentz, and I do think this could be great for that offense. And you may see Carson Wentz start more games than just the 2 to 4.
Yeah, so obviously having watched the Vikings a little close this week, which Kevin does say it was good for his team, his Packers holding the division. Having watched that game this week, I don't know what to think of J.J. McCarthy. I'll tell you the one thing that I make out of it, if I'm being honest with you, Brant, is if I was a Chicago Bears fan, I'd be so embarrassed to have lost to J.J. McCarthy. Because I saw nothing that honestly, AJ Terrell, our best cornerback by far, went out of that game early, and there was still no fear of the pass with JJ. So the odds of Carson Wentz coming in and settling in a little bit and, from a fantasy perspective, maybe making TJ Hawkinson relevant, maybe Jettas, which I think we thought Jettas was quarterback proof, but we saw Sunday night he really wasn't. That was J.J. McCarthy's fault that Jettas didn't have a good week. And honestly, I will say this too, which I think bodes well for Carson Wentz. After this Sunday, he does get Jordan Addison back for week 4. So I think that will alleviate some things for Minnesota too. But yeah, I'm honestly not that worried about Minnesota moving forward from a fantasy perspective. I think they're honestly better, kind of like you do.
Okay. All right. I'm going to move into the next one, the next biggest one, and that's Joe Burrow going to the IR, I think is the next real big one. Browning came in and led them to a victory against Jacksonville. I know Jacksonville, nothing to write home about defensive-wise, but he spread the ball out. He went 21 for 32, 241 yards, and 2 touchdowns. He did add 3 interceptions into that game. I believe it said he rushed one in as well from the 1-yard line. This is something I'm curious to watch. And Browning has QB2 upside in super flex leagues in my mind. If you were starting Burrow and you got a chance to go out and get Browning, I probably would be starting him because this defense is still terrible. So they're going to have to air the ball out. I think this is fine for Jamar Chase because, once again, he's got a quarterback that's willing to throw the ball. But I think he's going to get targeted even more by Browning because he's going to look that way because, hey, this is my wide receiver one. I think this is a little tick downgrade for T. Higgins, if I had to guess, because when he gets in panic mode, I think he's going to go to Chase and not really kind of go through the progressions and trust Higgins as much. So I think Chase will be fine. I think I'm taking a slight tick down on Higgins and Chase Brown. I think this is an upgrade for Chase Brown. I think he's going to see a few more checkdowns and get that chance to get out in open space and move the ball down the field. So I'm not too worried about this. I think Browning was very serviceable. Now, as more tape comes out, this could get as scary, but to start this out, I'm not too worried about it. I think, like I said, I think Chase might see more volume.
Yeah. So I will tell you, as a guy who played Chase in our biggest league, our home league, I was nervous as heck watching the ticker of that Bengals Jaguars game. After Burrow went out, I was kind of like, okay, wait a minute, maybe this hurts Chase a little bit. And it was like 7 or 8 targets in a row to Chase, it felt like. And yeah, I mean, if I'm a backup quarterback in the National Football League coming into a team where I've got Justin Jefferson or Jamar Chase, I feel like my job's pretty easy. Get the ball to those guys and let them do their thing, right?
Right.
So yeah, I'm Browning knows the system. It's not he's being brought in off the street. He's been there for a couple of years. We saw him last week, thankfully. So I think I'm completely okay with him too. Obviously he's not Joe Burrow. The arm talent's not the same, but I think he can tread water for this team. I'm not going rushing to FanDuel or Underdog to put in future bets on the Bengals winning the Super Bowl. But I think for fantasy perspective, he'll be all right for us. And like you said, in a super flex league, if somehow he fell through the cracks, I'm in 5 super flex leagues, and out of those 5, he was on the waivers for one of them. And that was a fab budget league of $100. He went for 96. So the availability or the odds of him being available are probably slim. But yeah, like Brant said, if he's out there, you should definitely be picking him up if that's an option. Just because, again, the fantasy points kind of write themselves. All you got to do is get the ball in a T. Higgins and Jamar Chase's hands, right?
Yep, absolutely.
All right, you went into that one. I'm going to go into one that I'm not sure you even put on your list, Brant, because it's kind of not fresh news, but I'm going to bring it up just because I wonder if you had it. I've got the 49ers pass catchers with Mac Jones instead of Brock Purdy. What are your thoughts there? Because I know Mac Jones had a very, very good week this week.
It seemed like he spread the ball out pretty well, and they were able to get going. I didn't get to watch a whole lot of that game, as I alluded to on our live. I unfortunately had to miss a lot of games in the afternoon, and I was focused mainly on my Seahawks. I did watch your Sunday night game. That was pretty boring to watch from my standpoint. It was kind of like going to a Chicago Bears Seahawks game while it's pouring down rain. Been there, done that. But, I mean, you had Juwan Jennings finishing with 10 targets, 5 catches, finishing as the wide receiver 11. I don't think you worry too much. I think he did his thing. He tread water like we said he would. I don't know. Like I said, I don't know what his full stats were. I had Jennings, so I was able to keep track of that one. But that is, once again, I think Purdy proved it, that's a system that's very good for quarterbacks. Brock Purdy's been, Mr. Irrelevant to getting a contract extension, being named a starter, right off the streets, kind of. And I think that's a very good system for a quarterback. And Mac Jones is going to be able to do his thing. You and me liked him in New England. It just didn't fall correctly there for him. And I think he'll be fine there. And I think the pass catchers as well, too.
Yeah, I do too, Brandon. I think eventually, obviously Purdy takes back over, but, good for Mac Jones having 3 touchdowns this week. I think, if he does that for a few weeks, he might see himself back as a starting quarterback in the National Football League next year. So, and again, for me at this point, because there isn't any pass catchers in San Francisco, no love lost at this point. So right. I do want to throw this question up from Kevin. I'll even let you take it, and then we'll talk about this, and then we'll get back into it.
Let's see. He said Daniels. If Daniels is a no-go, best QB to pick up Browning or Penix, expecting an unbiased response from Bo. Tua or Lawrence are available as well. I'm definitely not going with Tua. I know he was serviceable, but that was also at home. That team actually looked a lot better at home, but now they're going on the road playing Thursday. I'm not going with Tua. Lawrence has all the weapons there. I could see myself doing that, but honestly, let me see. Since he plays Minnesota, so that could end up in a run fest, honestly, with both having backup quarterbacks. I think you guys have who do you guys have this week?
Carolina.
I think honestly, I'd probably go with Penix. I like Penix. So yeah, I think I actually would lean Penix here. Browning, I probably would try to pick up and put on my bench because he might be startable, but this game could end up in kind of a run fest with both of them having backup quarterbacks and not short weeks to prepare, but only really 1 week to get these guys completely up to speed. I know they're both in the system, but I think I would go with Penix.
Yeah, I mean, it's probably not Tua just because of the Thursday night. And which Tua am I getting? If I knew I was getting week 2 Tua, that would make me a little happier. But week 1 Tua would on a Thursday night would be no bueno. Honestly, I don't think I go with Penix just because same thing. Penix threw for 300 yards week 1, a touchdown, and ran a touchdown in. This week he wasn't asked to do anything. Bijan and Tyler Algier carried the load. Of course, when your wide receiver 1 and wide receiver 2 and London and Mooney are banged up, that may be scripted. So for me, though, I think I probably go with Trevor Lawrence. I feel like Trevor feels like the safest play here. He's had 2 respectable weeks, one better than the other, but respectable both weeks. I feel like he's the most comfortable now, I guess. And if Brian Thomas Jr. starts catching the football again, that could even be better. So I think I go Lawrence at this point.
Honestly, after looking at how many times they aired the ball out in Jacksonville, 31 and 42 over the last 2 weeks, I think I'm going to lean Lawrence too, because they're definitely expecting to air the ball out. So now that I see that he's really aired the ball out that much, I definitely think that that's probably the route I will go.
Okay. All right. Do you want to stick with the Washington Commanders and talk about what happens if Jaden's out, or do you have another direction you want to go first?
I have Daniels next on my list, so that's fine there. I think he's going to end up going with the knee sprain, which means, in my opinion, you're going to have to limit the rushing upside because he's probably not going to be running as much. And also the deep ball, he's not going to be able to push off of that knee and get the ball and drive it down the field. So I think it's going to be a lot of checkdowns. And I would tell you to maybe start a running back, but I'm not sure which one to start. Obviously, I was on that Bill train, and I still think that he has value. I just don't know if I'm going to start him, especially if, the knee's banged up. Debo is the guy that I probably would start there. I think he lines up in the backfield with Eckler missing time, trying to keep some of the pressure off of Daniels if he does go with the knee sprain. So I think Debo is a guy I trust. But that might be the only one I do trust, even if Daniels does go. If Mariota goes, probably about the same thing. I think it's just Debo that I'm going to trust there.
Yeah, if it's Mariota, I'm disgusted. I've watched too many of those games to be interested in anything with Mariota. So
let's be honest, he might end up catching his own pass.
He's done it before, right? And he's also tried to throw the ball when he's been sacked on his back. Let's hope it's Daniels. If it's not Daniels, I'm also comfortable saying this, Brant. Haven't seen enough out of Scary Terry to want to play him at this point. And even though Debo's been really, really fun, it's been with Daniels. I don't, if I have different options, because let's be honest, how many of us went into the season either drafting or owning Debo in a dynasty league thinking probably going to play him week 3? So most of us, he probably wasn't a starter. So let's not start him for week 3 either, just in case. If Daniels plays, 100% Debo's in the lineup. If he doesn't play, I think I'm sitting on my hands on that Washington game and maybe just saying no thanks all the way around.
Yeah. Okay. And then the last one that's kind of big is Justin Fields. He looked horrible when he was in, and he is ruled out with a concussion. That's Tyrod Taylor. And honestly, Tyrod's not a slouch in the NFL. He's been doing it for 14 years. So obviously he's got something going for him. He's been 14 years backup. He went 7 for 11, 56 yards and a touchdown for the Jets. Garrett Wilson, I think, will be targeted a lot. I think this goes back to the Jamar Chase, Justin Jefferson. I'm a backup quarterback. Let me target my best guy. So I do think his targets will be out there. And I think Breece Hall is going to take a big tick because of checkdowns. And that's going to be the safest play for Tyrod Taylor is, okay, let me get it out to Breece Hall in a quick fashion. Let him work. He's one of the quickest, shiftiest guys on the field right there. Let me see if I can't get him the ball. So Breece Hall is a guy that I really would be very comfortable, obviously, starting. And so I think Tyrod Taylor is a little uptick for him. And Garrett Wilson, I think, will see plenty of targets there. But there's nothing else that excites me in that offense. And honestly, there's not a whole lot that excites me with Justin Fields starting besides Justin Fields still excites me. I know he looked atrocious this past week.
He was bad. I don't know if I can be on that train with you anymore, Brent. It was bad. I already was on the platform watching, but I don't know if I can be there anymore.
Okay.
I want to say this too really quick before I give my thoughts on the Jets team with Tyrod Taylor in instead of Fields. Tony and Kevin, if you guys are both still hanging out, I'd like to hear you guys' thoughts on this. Brant and I are potentially moving our live start sit Sunday to a little bit of a later start time. Maybe that way some more news can break. Get you a little closer to kickoff. That's something the Fantasy Holics page has talked about this week, is having and is flexing the Fatboyz. Is there a time that you guys works better for you guys? Because I know you guys are there every week. If so, drop it down in the comments, and Brant and I will try to accommodate that. But we're leaning towards a little bit later, whether it be 10:30 to 11:30 Eastern time, or maybe even 11:12 Eastern. So just if that works for you guys, let us know, because obviously we want to be there for the people that are there for us. So just want to throw that out there real quick. I think you hit the nail on the head, Brant. I do. I think Tyrod Taylor is probably a little bit more trustworthy as a true passer. I do think, however, though, it hurts the middle of the field because with Justin there, he's kind of keeping those guys close to the line of scrimmage in case he takes off and runs. I don't think defenses will, treat Tyrod the same. So honestly for me, Brant, outside of Garrett Wilson, I'm probably not starting much in fantasy for the Jets anyway. So it probably doesn't change a whole heck of a lot for me. But yeah, it's Breece Hall maybe as a flex. I think a lot of people got tricked into putting him into their lineups this week after his monstrous week 1, and we're really disappointed with what they got out of him this week. So maybe low flex for Breeze without super high expectations. But other than that, it's probably just, Garrett Wilson for me. So.
Okay. That's all I got for the injury news.
All right. You ready to jump into the underdog play and talk about Thursday night a little bit, and then we'll jump off of here for the evening?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we got to go over our streaming defenses too still.
Oh, okay. Are we going to do that?
Yeah, let's jump into that. Yeah,
on Sunday.
We do normally do it on Sundays. Well, then I guess I can save it for Sunday.
I was going to say, I don't have one written down, but I can pull one out of a hat. But yeah I think we started doing that on Sundays. So
okay. So
right, let's
do the ahead underdog. Of myself.
Let's do the underdog. Here we go. All right, Brant. So this Thursday night, we see the Miami Dolphins traveling up to Buffalo to play the division rival Buffalo Bills. What are your thoughts on this contest? What are you liking for underdog this week? And bear in mind, we need a little bit of a bounce back.
Yeah, we definitely do. Possibly the worst spread of the week with 11.5, and it is 49.5 points, which honestly, let's be honest, Buffalo could get all 49.5 themselves. I have Tyreek Hill to go higher than 69.5 receiving yards because I expect them to be trailing quite a bit. Their secondary doesn't scare me a whole lot. I think Tyreek can get behind them and get a few catches and break that 69. I do think we finally saw him go over a 30-yard reception this past week. I think he might have had like a little over it. I know he had a pretty serviceable week. I have Josh Allen to go higher Then 29.5 rush yards. He's gone over it twice or both games this year. He gets out. He normally gets a decent chunk run in the first quarter, and then we just got to see him a few more times. And then in order to salt the game away, I have James Cook to go higher than 67.5 rush yards. I think they're going to lean on him to salt the game away in the backfield of the second half. So that's what I got there. I think they're going to rush a lot and just take over this game pretty quick.
Yeah. So you and I are going to be very in sync with our picks tonight, based on. Our picks are going to be in sync based on the fact that we both think the game is going to go a certain way. I actually have Tua to throw for more than 234.5 passing yards. I've got him going higher than that, simply because I think they're going to be trailing. They're going to have to pass. So I took Devon Achane to go higher than 39.5 receiving yards. Feels like maybe try to get him out in space a little bit, take some pressure off it to no Waddle potentially this week with a banged up, I believe it was a shoulder for Waddle. So potential to be missing him. So I think that helps Achane. And I actually took James Cook to go higher than 1.5 receptions, just simply because 1.5 for a running back in a backfield where Josh Allen's quarterback and spreads it around to everybody a little bit just feels too easy to me. So I think this game's got the makings of a 60-point barn burner. And because I feel that way, it'll be 13-9, which will Vegas will win so much money on the under if that happens. But yeah, because honestly, 49 isn't high enough with these two offenses, because yes, I'm down on them right now too. They're bad, but the Dolphins can still put points up in a hurry if things go right. So I think this is a big week. I think it's a good game, honestly. I think the game this week is book capped with two really solid contests. We have this game, and then Monday night, I believe this week is the Ravens and Lions, which finishes with fireworks. So I think we've been really treated really nicely to the schedule this week as well. And Brant, before we sign off, I know we're typically done here. I got to go at you. Somebody sent me a trade. Somebody you and I both know mutually sent me a trade offer they got in the league and wanted to know their thoughts. So I'm going to tell you which side they're giving up, and you say what you think about it. So this player is giving up Devontae Adams, Javonte Williams, Drake May, single quarterback league, receiving Keenan Allen, Kenneth Walker, Jamar Chase. Yeah.
Dynasty.
No, it's a redraft, but even still.
I honestly probably would give up all three of the other ones just for Jamar Chase. So I think I'm going to take that Jamar Chase side.
Yeah, I agree completely.
Yeah,
really hard not to do that. That's a smash except when you're not giving up much.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, we do have another question real quick here to make sure we get to. I just wanted to make sure that, hey, put it out there. We get if I get a message during the show from somebody asking fantasy advice, it only feels right that I bring it up on the show. So what?
I hope they're both watching.
What are your thoughts on this question here from Tyler, who asks, is the Lions versus Ravens a Super Bowl preview?
I'm not going to say it's a Super Bowl preview yet. I want to see the Lions continue to do that. What they did this past week. I do want to see them continue to do it. The Ravens, they look good. They look good. They really do. The Ravens have very high potential to be in the Super Bowl. I can't put the Ravens there yet, or not the Ravens. I can't put the Lions there quite yet. Now, if they do that again this week against the Ravens, then yeah, maybe I'll agree with you there. But I can't bring the Lions to the Super Bowl yet.
I think if the Lions offense just looks somewhat competent this week, they don't have to be what they did to the Chicago Bears this week. But if they look somewhat decent again, if they put up 20 plus points where it's not field goal after field goal after field goal, I'm saying yes, because I thought the Lions were the best team in the NFC going into the season. The slow week one, which now I think we can officially say is because of the Packers defense being as good as it actually is, plays a factor in it. I think right now, as things stand, that's kind of who I feel are the two representing parties. Problem is that AFC is loaded, right? the Chiefs are 0-2 and aren't out of it. So, but yes, if I had to put money down right now, that's the matchup I like.
Okay, absolutely.
So all right, just want to say again, guys, we will be starting at a little bit different time this week. So try to pay attention to the page. We'll put out hopefully Saturday what time we think. Brant and I have to do some internal discussion and see what time we'll be live for the start sit this weekend. So be on the lookout for that post.
Yeah, absolutely. Make sure you guys join in on it. Like you said, we'll try to get it out there as early as possible and maybe a couple times throughout the week. Enjoy the game tomorrow night. Probably just the first quarter might be the only quarter that's close. But absolutely, we've been treated to some good football lately. The NFL has done us right, and enjoy tomorrow night. And we're excited to see you again on Sunday. But as always, stay hungry
and stay fat, my friends.